Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. It's the first podcast of 2020, the future. How futuristic was the year 2020 when we were kids? Well, when I was a kid anyway. New decade, new Doctor Who, new series, and of course it's SpyFall Part 1. I cannot emphasise enough how happy I am that it's Part 1. Yes, it'll probably turn out being one of those nice, long story arcs that cover the whole seasons, but no. And most important, of course, because you've seen it, and that's the only reason you would listen to this podcast, is the Master's back. My only problem with the Master being back is that it appears to be business as usual with the Master. A convoluted plan, probably involving an alien race, and it's kind of... well, it's going to have to be business as usual because it's a brand new actor playing the part. You only change one ingredient at a time, after all. And the only sadness about any of this is that does this, in a sense, undo all of Missy's redemption arc? Or was the entire point of the redemption arc so that she could be the one who kills her previous self? And then it's back to business as usual. Hooray! We've seen this Master in action for about a minute and a half, so I can't judge performances, but I'm no doubt people on the internet will be doing that, and a load of other things. I've got lots of things to say about this episode, but I'm going to try something new with this particular podcast. As you know, I've been doing it for, 12, 13 years now? And I was thinking what I should do is have a different voice appear. So, immediately after I saw this particular episode of Doctor Who, I took my daughter to one side, and she's 10 now, and asked her what she thought, because this was the first episode of Doctor Who she's ever seen. I know, this is me. I'm a bit of a fan. But it was never deemed appropriate, or she was too young, or whatever. And I did try old Doctor Who with her. I tried Invasion of the Dinosaurs. She was quite fond of Sarah Jane adventures. But Doctor Who? Well, no. So here she is, speaking immediately after the broadcast of the episode. Did you enjoy Doctor Who?
Yeah, I enjoyed the first episode, and it's a new series, and it was part 1 of 2 parts, and I'm looking forward to watching the second part, when it's on. And I enjoyed the Doctor, and I know it's a female, not a male, but I think she's done a good
right.
She's doing a part well.
She's only from Huddersfield, which isn't that far from here, the actress who plays her. So that's nice. So she's Yorkshire like you are. Right, so that's your first ever Doctor Who that you've watched all the way through modern Doctor Who. I know years ago when you were little, I made you watch a Pertwee story, but you were really small then, right? You're 10 now?
Yeah.
Right. So apparently this is the ideal age to watch Doctor Who. I know. So you liked the story. What did you think of the aliens?
They were a bit weird at first, but then they're all right. They're not as I think I found the aliens and stuff scarier when I was young, but now I'm older, I'm not as scared of the aliens, and I'd be happy to watch more, but I didn't find them as scary. And
when you were watching it, what were you calling them?
When I was watching them, I was calling them light Smurf vacuum people, because when Yaz went to the weird place, it looked like vacuum tubes. So, and the glowy aliens looked like they're Smurfs because of the hats.
So that's what we're going to call them. We're going to call them the Light Smurfs until we find out what they're called.
Yeah.
I was thinking they might be called Vord because the company's called VOR. Probably not. I don't know, because they're old monsters from years ago. And apparently that's the Master, who looks like that now, who isn't some mad Mary Poppins woman or some bloke with a beard. But it could be the Master of the Land of Fiction for all I know. I know nothing. But that's probably the new Master, because he squishes people really small. And that's what the person was inside the matchbox. But that's the sort of thing that we know, old school fans. You wouldn't know that. You just know him as the Mad Baddie. So that's sorted, really. So are you going to watch the next episode on Sunday?
I will watch the second episode, because I have questions to be answered still, like who are the Light Smurfs, and like what's going to happen, what's the Master going to do next, and things like that.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll find out, and I'll ask you more questions then. So until then, I'll see you in a bit. Well, actually, we're going to go and watch World's Strongest Man Final, because it's New Year's Day, and that's what we always watch.
Bye.
Bye. And I think that was quite enlightening, genuinely. Because, yes, I can bang on about spies who have to use sat-navs to get to headquarters when there's only really one road from Sheffield all the way to London, and you would expect a spy kind of to know the directions from A to B. And I can go on and on about how shoddy some of the camera work was, especially in some of the car chases, like the one on the motorway with the reversing car and the motorbike chase with... Now, apparently it wasn't a Bentley, it was a Chevrolet. Yeah, that came as a surprise to me as well. But I can talk about all of those things, when you know I will. But that's not what this is about. As far as she's concerned, this is about Light Smurfs. She doesn't care that the Doctor used to be a man. One of her first comments on watching the programme was, I think I might need to watch some of the old episodes. My heart soared. My wife's heart dropped. I actually could hear it from the other end of the sofa. Yes, there was punch-the-air moments, like when they mentioned Torchwood and Unit. Apparently they're out of business. I've been listening to those audios. I know they're not. But for her, it was a story about Light Smurfs. And she wants to know more. And that's a win. Anything I say is just going to be window dressing for you and me and us old school fans. But her opinion's what matters, because she is a new watcher. She said she'll watch episode 2. I don't know about episodes 3 to 10. I'll get back to you on those at the time. But nobody knows. So yeah, like I said, a bit weird about the spies needing a sat-nav. Of course, my money is on the alien race being Vardens, data monsters that could only be really released from their old storyline by a Time Lord who likes to mess about with that sort of thing. It's nice to have an old monster like the Autons would be for the Master. You know what I mean? Stephen Fry's masterful guest appearance mercifully lasted about a minute and a half, thus following on the great and glorious tradition of people who were in power positions in Blackadder appearing as spy masters. We've had Hugh Laurie, we've had Captain Darling, and they all ran MI6. The only thing we haven't had is, well, Johnny English, but he's a spy, and you know what I mean. In fact, the only person isn't Tony Robinson. He's never ran an MI anything, and he should be. Oh, on the subject of you know the whole thing about his name and claiming it back? Yeah, a couple of things. Isn't that the entire opening sequence of the film Home? I chose my name myself because it's what everyone says when I walked in the room. Yeah, just watch the film Home. That's the beginning. Or perhaps it's more O as in the story of O, which is yet another narrative to do with the Master relationship, but I think we'll leave that one there. Tiny things like the Australian Secret Service bloke being the one from No Activity made me smile. Great bit of casting on that one. And potential red herrings, like the guy having 93% human DNA. Now, if this had been the Christmas special and not the New Year's Day special, which you could have done, you could have had this one on Christmas Day, and you could have had episode, 2 being on New Year's Day, double whammy of storyline. That would have been superb. People would have not questioned as much the DNA problem. Because on Christmas Day, at least 10% of your DNA and my DNA isn't human either, because you've just had a massive lunch, and the DNA in your system is somebody else's. So perhaps that's more of a red herring. What he's actually had is a large meal, and the DNA in his system just isn't his. It's his food. Even if you were a vegetarian, the DNA of your plants would be in there. Does that make sense? So I'm not taking that completely on board, because the aliens who are replacing the DNA are doing it much faster and much more insidiously and 100%, if you see what I mean. Tiny issues again. Mentions of Alexa. Now bear with me. As a Doctor Who fan, it would have made more sense for Alexa to have been called something like Maggie, because Magpie Electronics might have built their own version, and it might have been rubbish.